So I'm literally off the grid right now and checking out Zed. And you can see it's very minimalistic. There's not really a lot to it. But since I am offline, I can use Ollama to use any of the LLMs as a coding assistant, pretty much. And you could still do localhost stuff, so any of the regular coding stuff is going to work. The difference is instead of, what do you call it? Instead of Stack Overflow or something like that, or Google search, you're just going to ask the LLM. And the other thing is that this is built from the ground up specifically for AI. So you have AI chat built in. You have a lot of code developing, pair programming kind of stuff built in, where instead of using Slack for something like that, you could do it all right inside of this. And you could see that, even being offline, we could just very quickly grab stuff. And obviously this is pretty basic boilerplate code, but Max, come on. That is Max. He is watching a fire. Hey. All right, so this is essentially that. So the task of adding a route that takes in form data consisting of a list of elements and that makes a sum of the wattage, essentially. So the idea being that if I have a list of items that I'm trying to use and they each have an individual type of wattage, I can see how much wattage is the total that I'm going to be using. And that way you can estimate how much battery life you would actually have left. So it's funny because I got it mostly right, except it's expecting JSON as input instead of the form data, which is still possible with HTMX JSON encoding, the extension. But it is doing everything else right, so it is going over and grabbing the wattage and kind of adding it to a list and then summing that up, so that's pretty good. And it is funny that since you mentioned return a p tag up here, somewhere over here, I said return a single p tag with the value as an HTMX response. Oh, okay, so I did say HTMX response, so it kind of knows what's going on here. This is not obviously how I would do it, but the idea is that it's definitely a good starting point, and it's a lot quicker than doing it with something like Stack Overflow or even a Google search, because you get right to where you're trying to do. And then we can actually continue the conversation. We're saying the HTMX response, HTMX is missing, and just string formatting. Here we see that it's actually making the necessary changes. It's still expecting JSON, but we didn't tell it to change that, so that's fine. So it should only focus on optimizing the response, and that actually does work. So it gives you a class of total wattage, which we didn't tell it what to use to style it, so that's fine. And then this is not exactly string formatting, but this still works. And we get a p tag, and it's a response. So this would be a valid HTMX request, with the difference being that we would have to tell it to change the data to not be JSON and instead be form data. I actually would probably use JSON for this instead of form data, but the idea being that if you're using input sliders or range sliders or that kind of thing, or just number inputs, it could still technically be form data as a regular input. So form.get list elements. So I guess this is fine if we're calling all of them elements, but this also needs some work. So, but you can see that you can very easily just keep going back and forth and you'll kind of get it. This is also one very specific general purpose model. If I used a model that was more specific to coding, it probably would do a lot better. This is just a quick update just to show you what it actually looks like, and I posted a short with some of the details, but this is pretty much what it is. It's very minimalistic, which